Some of you may have noticed my other videos surrounding Unirock's unfounded accusations about Shawn somehow being a fraud are missing. I've just simply made them unlisted, but you can still access them in the links below. The reason I did this is because I'm not going to make my channel about Unirock's buffet of unfounded claims and accusations. This video will be a summary of all my research thus far on this subject. Some of you will recognize the content of this video as I posted it in a very long pinned comment. When I was told that Shawn is a fraud based on the claim that he misused funds from a fundraiser intended to pay off his lease and relocate, since I knew at that moment he had already relocated, I was curious about Uni's claim. And with Uni's constant badgering and using my name, I decided to look into it. And let's not forget the source of these claims is somebody who is known to lie about anybody he can if he doesn't like them or agree with them. Here's an example.
Oh wait, Sly, you're actually using their tactics. You're trying to literally plug your ears like a flat earther and say, Unirock he rips off his community for money. Unirock is the one that does it. You're plugging your fucking ears saying that I do it. I'm actually ripping them the fuck off like he's claiming I am. He did make that claim, by the way. He straight stated that. And he said that I am someone who is ripping off my community or using my community for money or some fucking shit like that. So, Sly thinks you deleted a comment, Uni, but it's probably spam boxed because it's super long and I bet he cussed a lot in it. And I will pull up listen to me. I need to make this very clear. Anyone that has more than one YouTube channel, you know how it works, okay? You get to log into one of those YouTube channels in your creator studio. And on my phone is the only place I look at my analytics and shit like that because it's super easy. I only have at any time Unirock 2 logged into my phone. I never look at the Rock-A-Lot. I'm not even logged into Rock-A-Lot long enough to moderate people there. You do need to be logged into Rock-A-Lot to delete a comment. He is fucking stupid is what he is. I guarantee that either he deleted his comment or he had his comment caught in the spam filter. Because I don't even read the Rock-A-Lot comments. Very rarely have I ever, only after uploading, hearted a couple. Go look and see where I've done it because I rarely do it.
That much dishonesty, lies, slander, whatever you want to call it, just in a discussion about the fact that I posted a comment which said nothing of what he just said about me. So, of course, I asked the question, what is your proof that Shawn didn't use his funds correctly?
I have more evidence that Shawn Hufford, Reds Rhetoric, Steve McRae, and all of them have stolen this money and lied for each other than anyone even has evidence for the shape of the earth.
So far, this is the proof that I have received.
He's got to pay 10 months of rent just to not get sued. This is a lie. Why in the fuck would you jump in anywhere and leave when you have to pay this much money by law, you say, in order to have this place and move? None of this made sense when he did it. This is actually the reason why I started to criticize them.
When I first heard this claim from Shawn that he needed to pay out his lease and leave it, I also didn't believe it. But after researching several legal sites, it turns out his claim is actually valid. Not only was it valid in Indiana, but also, among others, in the state of Ohio where Uni lives. The short research reveals, unless it states otherwise in the lease agreement, or agreements are made between the landlord and the tenant, the lease is a binding contract which must be honored from beginning to end. Most of us do not rent to other people, so we only consider the view as a tenant. That makes our gut feelings biased against the evil landlord, or in more popular terms, it turns us all into Karens. When in fact the landlord is actually running a business, and like all other businesses, there are laws which protect them as well. This is why you sign a lease in the first place. It serves the tenant's living needs and the landlord's financial needs. Plainly put, the law protects the tenant from mistreatment, discrimination, and various other things to ensure stability and the rights of the tenant for the term of the lease. The law also protects the landlord's business from any undue losses due to the tenant by way of supporting the landlord's rights to the terms of and planned revenue from the lease. So under the law, the lease is to be fulfilled by both the landlord and the tenant. If this wasn't the case, then landlords wouldn't have leases in the first place. And further, if tenants, if evicted, were not responsible to fulfill their obligations to the lease, then an eviction would be a cheap and far more common alternative if you wanted to move. Think about it for a second. If I rent an apartment for $800 a month, and I want to move somewhere else for a reason that's not listed as a right to break the lease, and I have 5 months to go, I'm on the hook for $4,000. But I could just break a noise ordinance or something similar to that, some mild violation of the lease, and just get evicted. And since evictions only hover around $2,000, I pay it so I don't get hit on my credit later, and as a result, I save $2,000. The lease and the law are there to protect the landlord against losses due to such activities.
The lawsuit says he got evicted. He didn't pay anything. Well, here's the eviction. It happened right after he ran off with the money. It went on for as long as a normal eviction goes on, and it proves that he stole the money.
Now, of course, the eviction is not a good look for Shawn in this. But at the same time, the details of the eviction are, objectively speaking, unknown, as well as being slated confidential per the court record. So any reasons stated for the eviction are purely based on speculation. The facts surrounding the eviction which can be shown are: Shawn was not the only person on the lease. Shawn had already relocated by the time the eviction was filed. An order of possession was issued by the court because somebody was still in the apartment after Shawn left. This alone can suggest that neither Shawn nor his obligation to pay out the lease were responsible for the eviction. That's just fact. Additionally, the fees assessed in the eviction judgment are for the eviction itself and do not have anything to do with the amount of money due on the lease. Even I had incorrectly thought the remainder of the lease should be part of that judgment. However, when I researched other eviction cases in the same county from the same company, all of those cases hovered right around the same amount, which dispels that theory. If the remainder of the lease was part of the fees assessed in the eviction, then all of the cases that I researched would have wildly different fees associated to them by a difference of thousands of dollars, which is obviously not the case.
Faced with court records that prove their fundraiser money was stolen.
The zero on the court website balance has absolutely nothing to do with Shawn's standing with EPM or his lease. The zero is Shawn's standing with the Elkhart County clerk regarding the eviction judgment, and as demonstrated in the previous research, would only reflect payments made on that judgment if arranged to do so through the county clerk's office. This is not a reflection of Shawn's standing with EPM, as it is completely and totally unrelated, and the county clerk would not be tracking that. EPM would. As stated before, originally I had thought and argued that if the eviction had to do with Shawn not paying out his lease, then the remainder of the lease would be part of that judgment. And since the $2,110.16 plus court fees did not match that which would have been owed, then it is not proof that Shawn did not pay out his lease. As it turns out in my research, it seems that all evictions hovered around the same fee, which dispels the claim that it would have anything to do with the lease at all, just a finable breach of its terms, meaning that the eviction and the lease are two separate things when it comes to payment and the law. Of the many legal sites that I visited that clearly state that an eviction and a lease obligation are separate, just go ahead and Google, does an eviction terminate a lease? You'll get results everywhere from law pages all the way to Quora. But on a smaller Q&A site, this quote from a real estate attorney pretty much summed it up. If and when you are evicted, it can only be done if you breached one or more of the conditions of your lease. typically an eviction, does not end your responsibility to pay rent for the remainder of the lease term.
What is the issue? That we and the donators have called the landlord's lawyer, and know factually, because of the court, that he did not pay the landlord.
The common understanding of privacy laws are this. The First Amendment allows you freedom of speech, however abused. And yes, if you possess information that one might consider personal or is even legally protected, if reported for the sake of public information or newsworthiness, you are typically protected in making that information public if you acquired it through legal means and public sources. That said, none of the parties that were claimed to have been contacted are in a position, nor are they public resources to get that information from. Another note on that is, every time I have asked for the info provided in the claimed calls and emails, are always answered with "try it yourself" and other deflections. It seems to me that if there were coffin nails in the claims against Shawn, then they would be public. And I find it curious that not even proper names are used in these contact claims. I should also note that in my attempts of obtaining information about Shawn's situation from EPM and their lawyer have come up dry, which was expected because they are under no obligation to provide me with any information because I do not have a need to know it. In fact, they have policies and regulations which prohibit them from disclosing that information to just anybody. Though EPM did not seem particularly happy when I told them that somebody else claimed to have received information from them. Absence of proof is not proof of absence. Absence of proof is assuming proof of absence due to lack of substantiating facts. If I go to the store right now to return a microwave, the first question that's asked of me is, do you have your receipt? If I don't have it, does that mean that I didn't buy the microwave there? Simply put, no. Does that make me a liar? Also, no. Shawn has stated that his lease was paid off with a money order. So even with bank statements, it would only show that a money order was issued, not why or even who cashed it. Shawn's bank account was a joint bank account with his ex and also roommate in the apartment. She had the right to access it. She also could, if bank policy allows, close the account, thereby making it extremely difficult and expensive and time-consuming for Shawn to obtain records from it. There's also the bank policy by itself to consider and what the terms are for keeping or closing their account, as well as how difficult it might be to obtain records after it's been closed. And again, all that would only prove that a money order was made, but not who was made to and not who cashed it. A receipt from the landlord would have been also a great thing to hold on to, but Shawn was obviously not thinking that somebody would be calling him a fraud several months later. Additionally, since the court order of possession clearly demonstrates that someone was still residing in the apartment after Shawn left, it actually makes sense that when going through their drawers, that the ex saw the lease papers and the receipts and retained them for the purposes related to her still being there, as anybody else would have done, to ensure that the papers don't actually move with the person moving out, which can explain why Shawn didn't have them months later. And I am not aware that he has contact to his ex, so obtaining the original ones is going to be difficult if not impossible.
Yesterday, this screenshot's from back when this all happened, but they didn't show any of this back then. It's almost like they took a bunch of screenshots and put it in a folder just in case anyone ever finds out that they didn't pay the landlord so they can try to straw man.
This comment right here plainly demonstrates that no matter what is shown, it won't be accepted anyway. Per the major credit reporting firms, evictions are not something that shows up on one's credit. That's just fact. Shawn's statements about it not being there are based on the understanding that he and nearly everyone else has about that. However, what does show up on someone's credit is if the person did not pay an eviction, rent, a bill, anything, and then the charge was bought by a collection agency. The collection agency's claim then shows up on your credit. But to be clear, there is no known time on how long it takes the debt holder, in this case EPM, to allow for Shawn's payment. There's no set time for how long it takes them to sell the debt or hire a collection agency. There is no set time for how long it takes the collection agency to report to credit. So Shawn saying in April, or even today, that it's not on his credit report is perfectly valid. While many credit reporting agencies have separate services, which would advise potential landlords of previous evictions and various other problems, they all state that the evictions themselves do not show up on an individual's credit report.
Why is it that this company sued him right after they evicted him?
This one's short. There is no record anywhere on any site or by any evidence that Shawn was sued after the eviction. There are no further court cases. There are no further collection cases. There is nothing that shows that Shawn, after his eviction, was sued. These are all the things that have been claimed by Unirock as proof that Shawn is a fraud. This is the, presented thus far, result of a year's worth of claims from Unirock. And I am not going to accept that which can be disproven as proof from Unirock while knowing that Unirock will lie about people he doesn't like or disagrees with. Uni wanted me in this discussion, so here I am. And I ignored it for a year. And like the community of debunkers came to my assistance with their skills, to include Uni I might add, when my channel was being attacked by lying and dishonest folks covering their own egos, I am here to use my skills to assist others. So here's where I'm at on all of this. I have been associated with Shawn and Reds for nearly all of my going on now 6 years of debunking on this channel. Debunking folks with facts is a tough gig, because those who are just arguing beliefs can just come back with a new claim like an intellectual game of whack-a-mole. However, debunkers have to come with facts. I have not known Shawn, Reds, or many others with whom I collaborate to lie just to win a dispute. Sure, there's the occasional mudslinging, but not lies. I have seen Shawn and Reds host and support fundraisers, which have always arrived at accomplishing their set intentions of helping someone, purchasing a stated item, or whatever the cause. I have even participated and donated. I also accept that some situations are more complicated than others, with many moving parts, which are difficult or even impossible to display or demonstrate. But if the stated goal was met, even if that goal changes along the way, then mission accomplished. I have not been provided with any proof that any fraud has occurred. Shawn, who was financially unable to move from his apartment to another location, in fact, successfully moved due to the generosity of his friends and those who donated. Can I be wrong? Sure. Could Shawn be a very clever fraud? Of course. But until I am shown proof that even the simplest of Google searches can't dismiss, then my stance remains innocent until proven guilty. Y'all have a nice day.
Oh my God.